No, it's not. Not even remotely. But I recorded a bunch of footage for an Undertale video, and it came out looking like this. So that's going to take some time to complete, and I still wanted to try and hold myself accountable to weekly upload, so this is a less scripted video. Let me sell this game to you. Okay. Imagine a game that was all about dungeon crawling. There's no extra fluff or side quests or any of that stupid stuff that you don't care about, like you have in Skyrim or like Oblivion or like Morrowind. None of that. It's just pure dungeon crawling. Just you, enemies, treasure, traps, and boss fights at the end. Let me show you Crypt of the Serpent King, if I'm not already playing footage of it. Crypt of the Serpent King is a dungeon crawling RPG with intuitive combat and a sprawling roguelike layout. The goal is pretty simple. Collect a bunch of keys on each level, and then defeat the boss who sits behind a locked door. Repeat this 7 times and you're done. And there's a couple of weapons, melee, ranged, a couple of treasures you can find, mostly gold, ammunition for the ranged weapons, food to restore your health, simplicity itself. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what's the twist to this game? If I'm saying it's so great, there's got to be some kind of twist. The twist is that your character has T-Rex arms, and if you're not right beside an enemy, then you don't do anything. The other twist is that you have T-Rex legs, and every time you go to hit something, you slow to a crawl. So you have to do this kind of backwards jump motion if you want any chance of having any success in combat. There are many different types of enemies that you will encounter across your journey, and they all have the exact same AI. They just come up to you and try and hit you with the exact same audio loop of this absolute banger playing in the background. Whenever you're not fighting for your life, engaged in mortal combat with the most deadly of foes, you're exploring a labyrinth filled with a myriad of different traps, all guarding keys. What do these keys do, you may ask? And to that I say, were you not listening 30 seconds ago? They unlock boss doors, and these bosses employ only the most ironclad of strategies against their foes. So, this is the part where I admit I have not beaten the game yet, or maybe I have as of recording. Depends on how I do against the Serpent King. I do have the trophy for the game, but that's because I have a friend who likes to stay up till 3 a.m. drinking brewskis, and he completed it on my account. He basically sped around the game. So I think that that does make me somewhat of an authority on this game. I think I'm pretty well known within the Crypt of the Serpent King community. So I'm going to say my piece on this game because I think that it is hiding one of the most interesting and well guarded secrets in gaming, and that's all to do with the lore. One thing that fascinates me about this game is its level design. There isn't any rhyme or reason to the levels initially, and by the name of the game, you'd think that it would all be one big dungeon. It's the crypt, singular, of the Serpent King. So why do we go back from a mine to a sewer to a sandstone-looking area, and then more of a European-looking dungeon area? If the developer wanted to be lazy and simply paste one dungeon texture over and over again, they would have. But they didn't. What does this tell us? This tells us that, at the very least, there are several different cultures interwoven into the Serpent King mythos. What's more, we never see how we get from one level to another. There's no door or any kind of trap door at the end of the boss fights. You're simply taken to a menu screen before being dropped in a new location. This, I think, points to one of two things being possible. Either there is some strong teleportation magic at play in the Crypt of the Serpent King, or the Serpent King has such a vast network that it has spread over multiple different terrains and areas, maybe even countries within this fictionalized fantasy world. At the very least, his influence has to be massive if he's pulling in sandstone, which has to come from at least a desert, which is probably not near whatever sewer or mine is taking place in the earlier levels. Another weird aspect of this game is the enemy variety. Despite the fact that once again, this is the crypt of the Serpent King, we only find serpents on the 7th floor of the game. The rest of the foes are made up of many different factions. There's rat people, green men, skeletons, and most interesting, humans. This tells us at the very least that just because he is the Serpent King does not mean that he doesn't have a wide reach. He has a vast network of followers spanning many different species. Easily the most disturbing out of these factions is the humans. What would cause the people of this land to join up with the forces of the Serpent King? Could it be the promises of power and maybe protection against his wrath? I don't think so. And the reason that I say that is if you look at these figures, they appear to be knights of some kind. You would expect human followers of the Serpent King to have some cult-like appearance, but they don't. In fact, the fact that they look like soldiers or knights leads me to believe that the Serpent King isn't just worshipped by some rogue faction of humans, but that he is deeply ingrained into the politics and the power structure of the humans of this world. And that is terrifying. This all has to mean something, right? Surely this wasn't just the developer haphazardly pasting a bunch of different textures and models together without thinking of the deeper theoretical and metatextual meanings behind the artistic choices that they were making. There has to be something more here. Which leads me to my final point. And I think that this is a little bit of a purposeful misdirect on the part of the developer. When you beat the final boss, you think, okay, that's the Serpent King. The Serpent King is dead, right? However, at the end of the game, we get shown a tapestry of all of the bosses that you faced to get up to this point. Now, none of them are given names, but we just have to assume that that's the Serpent King, right? I mean, he had arms. Well, here's where my theory comes in. What we fight at the end of the game is not the Serpent King. It is merely some decoy, a puppet that we are meant to purposely think that we are killing as the real Serpent King in order to allow the Serpent King to operate from the shadows. We have solved nothing by the end of this game other than bloodshed and destruction. Meanwhile, the Serpent King, deeply ingrained in his human politics, gets to live another day, sacrificing those who fought for him, fought under his name, looked up to him, worshipped him. I think this is the true genius of Crypt of the Serpent King. On the surface, the gameplay seems pretty straightforward. We just have to go into the dungeon and slay the Serpent King. But in the background, there's a story of political intrigue and betrayal playing out, all without most of the player base ever even noticing. So, what do you guys think? Do you think I was right on the money? Do you think that I'm completely incorrect and the curtains were in fact just blue? I don't, but leave a comment letting me know what you think the true meaning behind Crypt of the Serpent King is. Also, consider subscribing, because every subscriber to my channel is another person who's aware of the Crypt of the Serpent King and that it's a bad idea to join up and enlist as a follower of the Serpent King.